Does that make sense?
You went through something that, again, really, really horrific, and you got a phone call one day that your mother had been shot by this man,
Yeah.
and she'd been shot point blank in the head by this man.
Yeah.
How old were you then?
20s when this happened. Let me think. No, I was closer to my 30s because my younger brother was old enough-ish to drive, but shouldn't have been able to drive. So maybe he was like 40. So yeah, maybe I'm like 24 at the time, somewhere there.
24. You get a phone call from him, your younger brother.
Yeah, saying mom's been shot.
What goes through your head in that moment when you get a call like that?
What went through my head was I knew exactly who did it. I knew what had happened. It's one of the worst things that comes with growing up in a house of domestic abuse and a house where you're dealing with an alcoholic is you become hypersensitive and you become really good at predicting things, So, I mean, my friends know till this day, I'll be the kind of person, I'll tell you when we should leave a party before a fight breaks out. I'm never around for the fight because I can feel it. I can feel energy. I can feel, and not like woo-woo, no, I just start noticing people are not having as much fun as they were 20 minutes ago, and a few of the guys are stepping on each other, and the ratio in the room has gotten bad, and the music's not connecting with people. I'll be like, it's time to leave, And I think that, from what I've understood in therapy and in working with people who do the research around this, is children start to develop an acute sense. It's like a spidey sense. You hear the sound of a car and you know which car is bringing danger to the house. I would know by the sounds of the footsteps whether or not my stepfather was sober or drunk. Just by his footsteps, I knew. By the way he would close or open a door, I would know whether to be on edge or not. And so when I got that call, everything in me let go. Like it was one of the most, still is, it's like a painful memory, is like, the first thought I had was, damn, it happened. I thought it would, but not like this, but it happened.
It happened?
Yeah.
What is the cost? Because you described that spidey sense, it almost sounds like a gift. And the interesting thing, to some degree, it can be a gift.
Yeah, it is a gift. I think every gift is a curse. And I think every curse is a gift.
And what is the curse that comes with the gift?
So the curse that comes with it is I exist in a space where I am too aware of how other people feel, And as I've come to understand it, what happens to a lot of children who are in abusive households is they develop their hypersensitivity as a tool to protect the parent, because they start, in the same way you were saying with your dad, why is he just sitting here? What happens in a household of domestic abuse is a child goes, oh, my parent does not know when danger is impending, and so I then need to be on alert for them. Because if they don't know, then I need to be alert. And if I'm alert, I can keep everybody safe. And so you develop that acute sense. You develop, your nervous system doesn't rest. I would sit in a room and I could feel the people, and I still have that. I now have to practice letting that go. And so part of it is probably why I'm a good comedian, but it's like learning when I want to use it and when I don't. So learning when to ignore it.
Did you have a choice?
Yeah, you do. You definitely do. I think emotions, you don't really have a choice about your emotions most of the time, but you do choose how you react or how it affects you. And so what I'll try and do is genuinely, sometimes I'll be, even in a conversation, I practice it when it's low stakes. I'll be with friends and I can feel the conversation getting heated and I can feel someone's going to say something that'll hurt somebody else. And then what I'll practice doing is just keeping quiet and breathing. Whereas what I used to do was I would jump in immediately. I would interrupt. And I'd be like, oh, did you guys see and I would diffuse and I'd find a way. And I was very good at it. I still am. But now I'll just breathe and I'll be like, well, let's see where this goes. I know my friends are not going to hit each other, but I now breathe and go like, it's not my job to protect everybody. And so I just try and breathe through the feeling and see how it turns out. Sometimes I even do it as a game to see if I am right, because sometimes you're predicting what one of the outcomes, and it may not be the outcome, and I then trust that they can also resolve things themselves. And that's probably one of the hardest things, is as a child, because as you said, you're not understanding how your father's a prisoner on this chair getting berated. And I, as a child, am going, I don't understand why my mother doesn't understand the danger. Why doesn't she leave? And why is she even getting into a conversation with this man? He's not sober. Why is this happening? Many children experience this. And then you then go, this person cannot protect themselves, so I have to do it for them.
And how did you try and do that?
Sometimes I would just disrupt anything. I could disrupt a conversation. I could find a way to sort of like
Distracting.
Yeah, like Chris Pratt with those raptors in Jurassic Park. You just find a way to like snap and just pull attention. Find ways to. It sounds ridiculous, but literally it was me just thinking of ways. Do you close a door that then has to be opened, that then alerts more people to the presence of somebody, or do you turn the TV up in this way, or do you say something to him so that he, his mood might shift in a certain way? Do you, all of these things I was thinking of, and this is me thinking of these things at the age of, let's say 9, 10, 11, 12, all the way through.
And does it ever go the other way, where you're also trying to cheer up your mother at all, or take care of her spirits, or?
No. I think my mother's gift and curse has always been the fact that her religion has powered her through. And if you know somebody who's very religious, you'll know that their connection with God and their purpose pushes them through, obstacles that most human beings would never be able to survive. Never. So there was never like despair on the other side that I could feel from my mom. I never felt like I had to like cheer her up. The house definitely descended into like a doom, and you could feel there was a palpable sense of tension post what had happened.
That day you presumably rushed to the hospital.
Yeah.
You arrived there. You speak to doctors, I imagine.
Yeah.
Did you speak to him? Did you tell the police about him? Did you call him?
Yeah. I mean, this is all happening in the chaos and the panic.
You called him?
I don't remember if I called him or if he called. I don't remember how it happened.
Did you speak to him after this event?
No.
And then you find out that there's been a bit of a miracle, I guess, because the bullet has missed all of the fatal parts of the head.
I mean, find out is it's such a drawn out feeling and moment, because time is weird in that it stands still when you're experiencing the worst of it, and it flies when it's the best of it. And so that moment, even when you say the word, you do find out. I go like, no, what felt like forever was us waiting for the inevitable news that our mom was dead. Like that seemed like the conclusion. I mean, I've watched movies, you've watched movies, someone gets shot in the head and it's over. So that was that was me grieving. It's a very strange experience to have, because I grieved somebody. I grieved the loss of my mother, but then she didn't die. But I completely grieved her as if she was gone. Like I cried because she was gone. I didn't cry because she was hurt. I was like, it's over, it's finished. Every thought ran through my head. I was like, wow, I'm raising my brothers now. It's like, okay, I guess now I'm the head of the household. It's amazing. Like my brain spun in every day. I was already now thinking 10 years ahead. I was like, oh man, okay, where are we living? What are we doing? How's this gonna work? And where's my little brother? And what do I tell him? And how do I,
In that moment, you're so interesting, because you get to see in the most horrific way the fragility of the most important relationship in your life, to come out the other side and realize how fragile that. Because when you talked about our parents almost being these like presidents, you also live under the assumption that they're always kind of going to be there.
Yeah.
And in that moment, you got to see that that's not That's not guaranteed.
Yeah, and that curse ended up being one of my greatest gifts. Because from that day onwards, I have never seen my mother the same way. You know, I've never, like every time I look at her, I'm grateful that she exists. Every time I hold her, I hold her like it's the last time. She even like pushes me off sometimes. Like I hug her hard, and I hug her for long. And I think this is extended to other people in my world, to be honest with you, is I'm very cognizant of the fact that this thing is ephemeral. I don't know when it'll disappear. So it has made me more appreciative of that. I don't assume, you know. I hope, and I think there's a possibility that we will meet again. You know, what as they say in Arabic, inshallah, God willing. I don't know.
And it was a bit of a miracle. I was reading, because you're right.
Yeah, no, it was.
In movies, you hear someone get shot in the head. You never hear that they survive a bullet to the head.
Yeah.
Whereas in your mother's case, she survived it by some...
Yeah, that's where we have to go miracle. And that's where we still joke till this day, you know, because my mom's very religious. I grew up very religious, but very skeptical of religion or anything really. And I was taught to question, ironically, by my mother. You know, my mother taught me to question. She still questions things. She doesn't like follow blindly. So I think I was in this position, and I think many of us were, where I'm seeing what I think is the end. The doctors are saying to me, we're gonna try what we can, but it looks terrible. And then we find out that the bullet entered the back of her skull, went through her head, and then exited. It shattered. It basically missed the bottom of the brain. Mm-hmm. You know, went past the the spinal cord all the way through, and then hit her cheekbone, which then deflected the bullet and then went out of her nose. So it like cut off a little piece of her nose, but the exit wound wasn't as bad as it could have been. And yeah, and the doctors couldn't do anything. So there was no brain surgery. There was no opening of it. It was just stopping bleeding, closing wounds, and now praying. And the doctor was the one who said miracle. And he said I hate this word because I'm a man of science and I'm a doctor. He said, but this was a miracle. He said, this shouldn't have happened like this. And then my mom was like, yeah, of course it's a miracle, and of course this is how it was gonna happen. She's like, my Lord protects me. So
he didn't go to prison?
No, he didn't.
How does that?
So in South Africa, I don't think it's unique to South Africa as well. You know, when I've traveled to other African countries, I've learned this is unfortunately true. The crime that a man commits against his wife or his partner isn't given the same validity as if it were committed against a stranger. You know, the court system doesn't treat it the same. The law is somehow not applied with the same level of ferocity as if it were somebody else. And so in this instance, you know, they basically ruled something to the effect of like, oh, it was his first offense, and you know, would he repeat it or not? And it's a failing of the justice system that has meant that many women in South Africa and other parts of the world don't feel like justice gets served. You know, you see it time and time again. You see it in the US all the time, unfortunately. You know, you'll see man kills wife, or wife and family and themselves possibly, and the case just isn't treated with the same. It's always seen as like there's like something went wrong, or in a tragic love affair. It's always labeled like that, and I think that's affected our ability in society to to treat it the way we should.
When you described the miracle that bullet traveled from the back of your mother's head through her head and then out her nose, it made me think about what we said at the start of the conversation about dominoes, and how, in this case, millimeters changed the course of your life. Because as you say, the responsibilities you would have then had to assume.
You see?
The life you would have
everything changes.
by millimeters.
Yeah, everything changes. I probably don't move to America. I don't explore the world in the same way. I take on a whole different role in my life. Everything changes.
What about anger towards him?